Welcome everybody. You are watching Modern Divinity and you're joining us for episode 2, which we're going to dive deeper into UK politics and how that plays a part in culture. Today, I am a lonely host, or am I? We've had some complications and I'm going to be joined today with Mr. Andrew Call. He's going to be replacing Max. Unfortunately, there was some complications that were unavoidable and we have found solutions. Max is going to be our director for the day. Today on the show as well, it's not only me and Mr. Call, but we also have a very special guest, an expert in politics, some might say, especially UK politics. This man has achieved an A in National 5 Modern Studies. He has successfully achieved a higher in Modern Studies. He has successfully achieved an A in Higher Politics. He has won a face-to-face debate when talking to the Patriotic Alternative, who are a far-right group. He has called 3 people on the bus a Conservative because they didn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. He's predicted that Reform UK would take the unofficial role of opposition just before the 2024 general election. And finally, he has played a vital role in saving Dalmuir Golf Course with his generous funding. On top of that, he does currently study this topic of politics through social sciences. So, Mr. Scott, I'm going to ask you, well, first of all, welcome to the show. I would like to ask you, tell us about your stance of UK politics, where you lie in the spectrum, and also tell us about your current studies.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you for that intro. Just makes me feel like someone special. It means a lot. I'll start off with my studies, obviously, as you said in that grateful intro. I'll remember that for time, by the way. I am course studying social science at HNC level, as level 7.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Within that course, by the way, it isn't just politics, it is, because it's in the name, social science, it's the study of people and social problems. We have various topics like history is involved, psychology. Either way, all these subjects tie in with each other, and of course politics is the main one. My stance politically, I would say I am left-leaning. As I say, I do believe in some of the socialist cause. I wouldn't say I am an outright socialist. I'd say I'm more of a social democrat. I believe that people can or should have the ability to make their own business. But I wouldn't say I am an outright capitalist, but I do believe there should be a mix of public and private ownership, if that makes sense. A bit of a mixed economy type thing. So that is where I would stand on the political spectrum.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, that is a wonderful introduction there from Mr. Scott. He's told us exactly where his stance is, what he's currently studying, which is crucial to know going into this episode. So, beginning about talking about UK politics, I think it's important that we start from the roots and we look at how UK politics has evolved starting from the Second World War. So, Mr. Scott, Mr. Call as well, what have you got to say on this?
Yeah, so of course a lot has happened since the Second World War. Let's start off with the very important, impactful general election in 1945, right after the victory in Europe. And of course, Winston Churchill led Britain into probably the biggest W, we'll say, for Britain in its history, defeating Nazism. But of course, in that very same year, the public in Britain did not believe that he was the right man to lead Britain into the big rebuild post-war. Yeah, so Clement Attlee's Labour government, I do also want to note that probably has been the only fully socialist government we've kind of ever had in British political history. People could argue that, definitely, but that would be my standpoint. And then we go on, we had Winston Churchill actually came back as PM, I think 1952. Can fact check, but I'm pretty sure 52. And then we move on to 1957, where we still have a Conservative government. We have Harold Macmillan. He actually dropped a famous quote saying, "We've never had it so good," and that is down to the kind of the post-war consensus of the welfare state and the introduction of the NHS and the introduction of social housing as well, where people that have lesser money could afford housing. And then, of course, trade unions became stronger. Workers had a bigger say on their conditions and wages. And then we go up to 1979 even. We had the winter of discontent, where there was a lot of blackouts under a Labour government, James Callaghan, and people, including trade unions, do have to introduce, lost trust in that Labour government, and we go on to 79, where Maggie Thatcher became Prime Minister, the first ever lady PM, and yeah, that was kind of the first sort of change in ideology, how Britain is shaped today, because with Thatcherism and Reaganism was the introduction of neoliberalism, which basically is, how can I put it? It's more of a capitalist ideology where there is less state intervention. There's no regulations stepping in from the government. It is, instead of a single market, it's a free market where the exchange of resources and all that is through supply and demand, and basically people are seen more as a customer rather than
Human.
yeah, you could say that, yeah. And we see a lot less of utilities like healthcare, means of transport and all that being privatised, which happened a lot under Maggie Thatcher. So yeah, any opinions on?
Well,
Maggie
yeah,
Thatcher?
I would like to go further about Margaret Thatcher. You were talking about the shift of ideology, and I believe that played a really huge role in the history of UK politics, and many people had lasting effects even after her reign. And so I think this is a really crucial part that we talk about. So yeah, Margaret Thatcher, diving deeper into that, what really happened? What were the effects of it all? And you know, what happened to just a usual family? This is really important to talk about. A normal family with just whether the average, maybe even below average income. What was their situation like? What was the jobs like? How did that affect the history of UK politics?
Okay, so of course with the introduction of neoliberalism, what you found was there was a lot more people getting wealthy, no doubt. A lot of maybe even working class people benefited a lot from Maggie Thatcher. But what you seen to happen as the decades went on, and by the way, it never really changed. It didn't change under Tony Blair or anything like that. What happened though was there was kinda the creation of an economic inequality. So what happened was people that were making the money, because they were solely driven on making profit, you know, they kind of started exploiting their workers, you know, and with deregulation, their companies, they could do whatever they want effectively. You know, they could be like, right, we're going to pay you this and that, which I think is very unfair. A lot of people would argue that, or on the capitalist side of things, they would argue, yeah, but without these innovators, you know, making these businesses, it would deny people work. But you've got to get those people to work to make the business work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would be my take on things. What about you, lads?
So, my opinion on Maggie Thatcher, if we go back to that question, I know a rhyme, but we don't have enough time, so we'll keep away from that. One thing that I'll talk about that she'd done, which brought a lot of distrust in her government from her own people, was when she'd sent the army over to Northern Ireland to help maintain the peace, which they had for some form of time, both Catholics and Protestants, and anyone who had any disagreements with each other were quite happy with the army being there, keeping the peace. Everyone felt a lot more protected, until the army seemed to not actually do anything when people did still have the balls to commit atrocities to one another, which just brought back more and more distrust. So when the British Army were in Northern Ireland and weren't able to keep the peace so much, it broke out into a massive problem known as the Troubles, as you've probably heard of. And a major incident from this that I'm going to bring up was the 1992 London Bridge bombing, just so we can keep it in the UK, and how that grew distrust even among the English and their own government, as there were over 30 people injured in this bridge bombing, or in fact wounding 29 people, so it was just under 30 actually. It was the provisional IRA had set a bomb off on London Bridge, obviously injuring these people, and that had brought a lot of distrust to the government, as they weren't able to stop it or do anything about that. And that wasn't the only terrorist attack that had happened in London at that time. There were several others, cars, I think there was stabbings as well, that had, political relevance to the Troubles. So that's brought back to Maggie Thatcher. Do you know how that brought up the distrust even more? The Troubles?
But the Troubles?
In general, yeah, and how that brought a lot more distrust as well to Thatcher's government. Although I know they stayed in power, bro, but
Well, well, that's the thing. With the Troubles, I would say there's a mixed opinion on it, because there would have been a lot of people, and maybe even still to this day, that supported Maggie Thatcher with the Troubles, because a lot of people, which is true, feared the IRA.
So it was very divisive then.
It was very divisive, yeah.
So do you think that split up the UK and Ireland as a whole?
I want to ask as well, just to add on to that, what would it be like to live in a country that's that divided?
Well, my grandpa actually moved from Ireland, and so did my gran on my dad's side at that time. Around the 70s, I believe, they moved from Donegal, Ireland to Clydebank, Scotland, and lived there through the 80s, so I'm sure that was a good...
So some fun about Clydebank.
Yes, something a bit fun about Clydebank, yeah.
Yeah. I think Clydebank's a nice place, but...
So yeah, what would it be like though, again?
That's what I was saying, so people were moving out, so it must have been pretty terrible, as a lot of people had moved even into the UK and further away into America and all that.
So yeah, living in a divided country, if you got any insight about that?
Well, it's never good living in a huge division, especially over violence. And yeah, I certainly would say Maggie Thatcher never helped that, because her and her government's actions, they replied in aggression instead of conversation. Because if we go to 1998, literally the first year of New Labour, Tony Blair's government, they managed to reach an agreement called the Good Friday Agreement, as many people know, and that was basically getting two sides, British government and whoever the political power was in Northern Ireland at the time, and they were like, right, we need to reach an agreement here, because this can't go on, it's hurting Northern Ireland, and there's too many people getting hurt and dying. So yeah, definitely I would say.
Any last points, Mr. Paul, before we move on?
So the Good Friday Agreement was done in Belfast on April 10th, 1998. And that was pretty much seen as the end of the Troubles.
Yes. Brought peace to Northern Ireland.
Was that quite a celebrated day? Is there anything that's came from that, a national holiday?
I don't believe there's a national holiday from it. I don't know, obviously people are very happy that the violence is done, but that wasn't really the end. They'd also went after a lot of IRA members to put them all away, and people are still in Northern Ireland and Ireland not very happy that all of it even occurred, and there's still a lot of division over there, but obviously it's not quite violence like it was.
Yeah, it's not the Troubles. Yeah.
It's good to hear that it's on the decline though. Moving on, we need to, let's clarify, I think there's been a lot of focus on what Margaret Thatcher stood for. Let's talk about what is the design system of UK politics, and that's going to be involving its ideology and purpose. So talking about the whole spectrum, what is there to be said?
Of course, Britain got things under a parliamentary system, so you get elected officials. They go into Parliament, and they basically, so they're elected to make the decisions, pass legislation. This is what's called a undocumented constitution, which is different to America, because in America you get the constitution where it's a few hundred-year-old set of laws and rights that people have. What I would say is the constitution is more powerful than our constitution, as our laws are not permanent. They can be changed or repealed by other governments. So yeah, you have two chambers in Parliament. You get the upper chamber, which is the House of Lords, and the House of Commons, where they are the elected officials, the House of Lords, or the unelected officials. They also have some input on bills that get proposed that eventually turn into law if they are successful. And obviously in Parliament there's 650 seats. You need a majority of those 650 seats to form a government. If it's a hung Parliament, then you maybe make a deal with another political party with their seats. You add your seats and their seats, and that becomes a coalition. So I just wanted to say that.
That's very important to know. Yeah, and you've certainly educated me there. I think that's crucial to know. So, I mean, I've got a special request of something that I find is very important.
Oh.
As you dig into explaining now the political parties, once you've done that, can we put an emphasis on some of the standout parties in the current day that I need to find for? Can we put an emphasis on some of the standout parties in the current day? And I'm talking about Reform, Green, Labour. Can you go into details about these current powerhouses and also up-and-coming parties and what they stand for, what they are trying to promote? Could you mix that into your answer while also explaining the whole spectrum?
Yeah, okay. So of course you've got left, you've got the centre, and you've got the right. So with the far left, you'd probably consider people communists, maybe socialists. There is similarities to socialism and communism. I would say though a big difference is with communism to socialism. Communism wants a stateless society, so there's no kind of hierarchy, anything like that. And socialism, I would say, is more democratic. You know, they like to see more role of the government. I would say the Green Party, especially, could maybe fall under being socialist. They are big advocates for state intervention, you know, helping people out through government spending and public services. So I'd say Greens would fall under that. I would also say as well, Labour at one point, as mentioned before, or the Labour movement would have tied in with the socialist ideology.
Right, yeah.
But as time has went on, Labour has fallen more into the left leaning, which is social democracy.
Right.
That kind of mix of that mixed economy of I guess collective ownership. So a mix of public and private ownership of resources and materials. And then you've got the centrists. These are called liberals. I just want to make this clear because it's a big thing in America.
Okay.
There's this misconception that if you're a liberal, you're a lefty. That's not true. A liberal is a centrist at heart. Again, they believe in a stronger, a more capitalist economy, more individualistic freedom, I guess, or liberties, as they are liberals. And also, they will take opinions from all sides of the spectrum. I like to say that, hence why they're centrists. They will take in left-wing policies and right-wing policies. You've got the Liberal Democrats.
Right,
yeah. And on the right, or centre-right, you have the Conservatives. But now you can make the argument that it's been hijacked by the Reform Party. And their true beliefs is, I guess, tradition, believing in gradual change, but not complete change, not radical change. Although reform, strangely enough, they have been using the word radical a lot,
Right.
which could
Goes
be the
against what
case
you'd
on some
expect.
things. Yeah. Believe in low taxes or cutting taxes, especially for corporations even. Sorry. And they are very anti-immigration. Then you've got the far right, and you mentioned one of the
patriotic alternatives,
patriotic
which you
alternatives.
also had
Yeah.
an encounter with, along with Mr. Scott.
Yes, while we were going to West College, Scotland, where you're currently studying,
That is correct.
where he is currently studying his politics, he had a debate with some very far-right group called the Patriotic Alternative. They're just extremely far-right UK group, and he'd beat them in a debate.
Yeah. I just want to quickly say their core beliefs tie in with anti-Semitism, racism. They are ultra-nationalists, so they believe British people or Britain for British people, meaning most likely,
Anti-immigration.
well, anti-immigration, but the white man for the white man, pretty much. That is the far right, and they're violent, of course.
Yeah, that's a wonderful explanation. Anything?
I mean, they'd showed up to Clydebank a few times, debated Cammy the Smeg G, I can't say that. Debated
you were
Cameron.
involved. You were involved as well. You got involved.
Yeah, I got involved, but they
From
showed
12
up,
miles.
had debated the people you're seeing here at this podcast, and didn't really show back up again. I've not seen them around, I've not heard of them being here.
They're still here, but they're
Obviously, they're still here.
yeah. There's
our
been
town.
complaint by the council and all that. And people have been. We also get chased by them. I don't know if
Oh,
I mentioned that.
We got chased by them from like the bandstand to the gigs.
Yeah.
We get chased to a train station, that was a shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, that's a wonderful podcast we've had here, a lovely episode. It's such a pleasure to have had you on. I think you gave some really clear points, some great information. I hope that any misinformation that might be believed out there has been cleared up and we have the pure facts here. So, that's it from myself.
That's it from me as well.
Thank you for having me on.
It was
It
a
was a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Oh.
Till next time.